Well, hello. Today I'm going to talk about my favorite purchase, my favorite sports card purchase of the year. And guess what? This card was cracked twice. Cracked twice out of the slab, resubmitted. Let's talk about this thing. Hello to all my sports card collectors, investors, all of my collectibles friends. How are we? How are we doing? It is Memorial Day weekend.
Let's scare this guy out of here. Come on, lock up, baby. Lock up, baby. Lock up. I got him locked. Bingo.
I hope everybody's having an awesome weekend. This is going to be a fun video. Hey guys, if you're new here, please hit that subscribe button. It's that big red button down below. I put out sports card collectibles content just about every day, and we will keep it coming for you. So the likes and the subscribes and all that stuff, very, very helpful. Also connect with me on IG at SportsCardDad, and I'm also on the Twitter machine, the SportsCardDad. All right, guys, I have been making buys here and there, but for the most part, as if you watch my channel, you know, I've been saving for the Raleigh Card Show, my local show, coming up in a few weeks, and then also the National at the end of July. I'm trying to make sure that I'm well funded for these shows because I'm excited about doing some negotiations face to face. But as does happen in the hobby, one day I was minding my own business a few days ago and I got a DM from somebody that had watched the channel and said, hey, look, I know that you are in the market for a 61 Fleer in action Wilt Chamberlain rookie card. Not the portrait rookie card, but the in action version. I like the fact that frankly, they're just a lot less expensive than the portrait option, but it's still from that classic 61 Fleer basketball set. And I don't own any of the 61 Fleer basketball. And I've been looking, I've been close on a couple of different things, and I just have never pulled the trigger. And so he's like, hey, I've got this Jerry West in action. So it's not the Wilt, and I've been looking for the Wilt and just price point and everything. It just hasn't lined up for what I was looking for. But the Logo Man Jerry West is finally in the collection. I'm really, really excited. It is a PSA 5. And so the guy, it was very interesting. He said, hey, look, interesting story behind this card. He had this originally, it was in a BVG, am I saying it right? All the acronyms these days, Beckett Vintage Grading, a BVG 8. And I believe he said it was top 30% based on eye appeal, etc. I don't know a lot about the BVG side, obviously BGS, but the vintage grading side, I'm assuming it was probably an older slab, etc. But it was a BVG 8. And if you look at this thing, I mean, it does have, you know, some softish corners and stuff, but the centering on this card is incredible. And I've looked at tons of these. I've looked at lots of the Jerry West and also the Wilt Chamberlain. And what you'll see is even on some of the PSA 6, 7, 8s, they're off-centered. They're not even close to being this well-centered. And so for me, I was like, oh man, I will definitely take that. It's a 5, and the price point just kind of worked out well. But it was in a BVG 8, and he has, this particular seller, this collector, he also has the Wilt in an SGC slab. And so he's like, you know what? I'm going to crack this thing. I'm going to send it to SGC. So he cracks it, he sends it to SGC, and he gets a 6.5. And so he's like, oh man, you know, I feel like this could get a PSA 7. So he sends it off to PSA and he gets a 5. So instead of getting that 7 that he wanted, he's at a 5. But the card looks fantastic. And basically what he had told me is I'm trying to save money for the National. Exactly what I am trying to do as well. But I kind of figured that this is exactly the kind of card and price point that I would want, the kind of deal I would want to make at the National or at the Raleigh Card Show, my local card show. You know, so that's the reason why I pulled the trigger. You just don't see them centered like that very often. 61 Fleer in general, but definitely the in action. The way that the bordering is, it's very easy for it to get all wonky. Just very, very difficult to get good centering on those cards. So had to pull the trigger on the Jerry West in action. I also am going to show a couple other cards that I picked up here recently as part of my Drew Brees PC, the personal collection. Oh, let me grab the other one. So I had gotten the 4.5 CGC And then I ended up getting the PSA 9, just good price points. I think that the Breeze stuff is starting to come down. Now that he was let go as an analyst, it's not that he is disliked, but it's just bad news for him as, you know, as part of his kind of overall image and career. He's not going to be that 30-year broadcaster, or at least not at this particular company. Maybe he's going to go on to a different network or whatever. But just picked up a couple of, the Breeze stuff has started to, I don't know if it's started to come down in price or I just happened upon decent pricing on this stuff. But it's been good for the Drew Brees PC. Part of the reason why I wanted to share that story about the Jerry West, the 61 Fleer in action Jerry West card, is because it shows kind of those risks associated with cracking slabs and resubbing to other companies or the same company. You know, a lot of people talk about, oh, I cracked this and I sent it off and I got, instead of a PSA 8, I got a PSA 9 or I got a BGS 9.5 and it all worked out great. But a lot of the news they don't tell you is that many times, if not the majority of the time, it doesn't necessarily work out in your favor when you crack to reslab. Plus, I always hear those stories and I'm so paranoid about messing up a card. I could never crack a slab, I don't think, unless it was an inexpensive card. This is actually the only card where I thought about, like, maybe this is worth cracking and resubmitting, because this was a $40 card, you know, and it's in a 4.5. You know, maybe it goes and it gets a little bit better of a grade. It does have, I think the big knock on the card is I think it's got like a dimple or a crease, like a small crease on the back. It's not much. I mean, the rest of the card looks really nice. So as far as the actual card itself, it looks great. It's not like the corners are all dinged up or anything. It's literally like there's just a little kind of, you know, crease in the back and they dinged it pretty hard. But so anyway, cracking and reslabbing, can it work? Yes. Will it definitely work 100% of the time? No, not 100% of the time. And in fact, in many cases, cracking and resubmitting will not work out, but it also just depends too. I mean, I don't know what the comparisons, the PSA 5 compared to an SGC 6.5. I know for vintage, PSA and SGC are a lot closer than modern, ultra modern. You hear all the talk about like the big disparity in price point between PSA and all the other grading companies, and SGC being a popular grading company right now as well. You kind of hear there's such a huge disparity between a PSA and an SGC, but for vintage, it doesn't really play like that. SGC is very comparable to PSA as far as price points go. So I don't know, but it was an interesting story. That has not happened to me quite like that. I'd not ever bought a card, you know, with that sort of a story. So I wanted to share it with you all. But interesting to kind of see what people are doing with cards as far as cracking, resubmitting, and the strategies behind it. But guys, thank you very much for joining me here for another video. Have an amazing rest of your day. Stay healthy, stay awesome, and I will talk to you again later.